Wow, I can't believe it's time for another recap already. I feel like I just did the last one. But we're already in the month of November. I think it's almost been a full year since I've done these recaps. I believe it was January or February of this year when I first started them, so I've been consistently doing them every single month, which is great. You guys seem to like them, so I'll keep doing them. October seems like a pretty good month for this YouTube channel. I'm currently sitting at 3,750 subscribers. I gained 83 subs over the last 28 days, and look at that. The views are up, watch time is up, and the revenue is up by quite a bit. You can see from my total revenue over the past 6 months, and it's gone up considerably since the month of May. So that's really good. Thank you guys for your continued support. I appreciate it so much. And who knows, maybe before the end of the year, I can hit 4,000 subscribers. That would be really cool, right? I'm also going to try to do some more live streams. I actually got 2 live streams done during the month of October, which is very rare. It's only like every 3 or 4 months that I even do 1 live stream, but I actually got 2 in 1 month, which is a very rare thing for me. I did 1 stream where I did my full predictions for next gen, which is actually like less than 2 weeks away at this point, which is crazy. I feel like the PS4 just came out. Time just flies. And then I did another stream with my good friend Bullet Barry, which was a lot of fun. So I'm hoping to do more streams in the near future. If there's anything specific you guys want me to do live, like if you want me to do gameplay live streams with subscribers or something like that, let me know. But either way, my streams always turn out great. People really seem engaged with them. People love it when I go live because it really brings out an interesting side of me that you guys don't really see in my usual uploads. And it's just a lot of good fun. So I hope to keep doing more in the near future. But let's get right into your comments. So the first video I made in the month of October was a conversation about how much content should a video game have, and when is a game worth $60 or $70? And I pretty much say that a game is never worth $70. I think raising game prices to $70. Hey, I don't know if you guys are going to spend that kind of money on a game, but me personally, I won't do it. Even $60 for a game, I rarely do that. And it definitely has a lot to do with the type of content that the game provides. Fallout 4, for example, it's a game I still play to this day. And it's a single-player only game. It came out 5 years ago. I still play the goddamn thing. So it was definitely worth the $60 I spent on the game and then the $30 I spent on the Season Pass. But then there are other games out there like, I don't know, Watch Dogs. Anyone remember that game? I know the new Watch Dogs Legion game is coming out soon, but I'm talking about the first one, the OG Watch Dogs, which I enjoyed that game. A lot of people were giving it shit. I thought it was a good game, but I also didn't think it was worth $60, and I also think I paid for a Season Pass. I forget how much that cost, but I spent probably close to $100 on that game, and after I beat the single-player campaign once, I was pretty much done with it, and a few months later, I sold it to my friend. Like, so at least I have that trade-in value for the physical game, which you don't really have on PC, but still, it was a game that I didn't really put much time into. It definitely wasn't as valuable of an experience as Fallout 4 was to me. So that's just one example I can think of from the top of my head, that not all games share an equal value despite costing the same, if that makes any sense. But let's see what you guys have to say. GeoArtha35. I always buy games 1 or 2 years after release. Honestly, same. Actually, I go even further. I go 3, 4, 5 years, sometimes 10 years after the game's release. A good example I could think of is Dragon Age Origins, which I ended up pouring, like, I don't know, 200 hours into that game. Amazing game, probably one of my favorite RPGs of all time. That shit came out in 2009. I didn't get into it until late 2017. It was Christmas 2017. I remember very good. It was at a time when I was in a really precarious situation where I couldn't afford to eat. Like, I had no money to eat. I had not a lot, and Christmas, I had no heat, I had nothing. It was really bad, but I wanted to treat myself on Christmas Day and get myself something, so Dragon Age Origins was on sale for like $5, and I decided to pick it up, and it was probably the best $5 I've ever spent in my entire life because it was so fucking good. It was a good escape from all the bullshit in the real world, which is what video games are supposed to be, and that kind of leads into the conclusion of this recap. If you remember the last video I uploaded, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, Dragon Age Origins was just so fucking amazing. And I only spent $5 on it, but it was just as amazing in 2017 as it was when it came out in 2009. So my whole thing is, it doesn't matter when you buy a game. Like, what's the fucking rush? Why do you need to buy the game on launch day, day one, when most games don't even deserve that for you to do that? You know what I mean? Like, especially multiplayer games. Holy shit. You're lucky to find any multiplayer game that is finished day one. I don't even think such a thing exists anymore because we have the whole video games as a service, so it's an excuse. It's a whole marketing tactic for developers to release a game unfinished and then finish it later. My whole thing is, I just can't be bothered. Fuck you. I want a game to be finished when it comes out. Is that too much to ask for these days? I guess it is, but I definitely feel the same way as Geo Arva, that it doesn't matter when you buy the game. If it's 1 year, 2 years, even further, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, a good game will always be a good game in my opinion. I mean, maybe there are a few exceptions like GoldenEye, where it was amazing in 1997 or 1998, whenever it came out, but it's not so fun in 2020 because the shooting mechanics are very archaic, to put it nicely. You guys, anyone who's played GoldenEye recently knows what I'm talking about. But moving on to the next comment from MagnaMaster. I base how much I am willing to pay for a game mainly on its quality. I would rather pay $60 for an amazing 8-hour-long game that is the most fun I ever had than a 50-hour-long game that I would only describe as pretty good. If something is good enough, I am happy to play through it again and again. There are some games I played through close to 30 times. One of them only takes about an hour to get through, yet I was still happy to pay $60 for it because it was just that good. At the same time, I feel that some types of games need a certain length to work best, while other genres are more adaptive. Platformers usually work best if they are a bit more on the shorter end, but I have not seen many short RPGs that were good. The only one I can think of is The Surge. Some genres, due to this, are naturally less fit for certain price points, but I think people focus to content amount far too much and not enough on replayability of the same content. Games that allow many different playstyles are still fun after playing them before. And even if some games are repetitive to play through multiple times, if it is really fucking good, that wouldn't stop me from having a blast. So I understand what MagnaMaster is trying to say. So just because a game is, like, I think I made this point in the video actually, that there are games out there like Anthem that on paper last 200 to 300 hours, somewhere in that range, but most of those hours are a waste of fucking time because you're just grinding and grinding and looting, and it's just so repetitive. And I hate those types of games that just have that repetitive gameplay loop. Mafia 3 is a good example of this. And if you play the Mafia Definitive Edition, it's pretty much the same gameplay as Mafia 3 with the story of Mafia 1, so you know what I'm talking about, where it's just you're doing the same shit over and 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 over again, that it's just so fucking redundant. You really don't feel like the experience was worth a full $60 price tag, even though it was kind of an open world. Well, Mafia is a weird thing where it's kind of an open world, but it kind of isn't. But, you know, in theory, you can put a lot of hours into the story, but it's time that you really don't spend, like, okay, the first few hours is great, but then after a while, it's like, okay, I've done this before. Oh, go here, kill people, use stealth, and, you know, stab him in the neck with a knife, and it repeats over and over and over again, and you're just like, you know, I'd rather have an experience that is more dynamic, that gives me a wide variety of things to do, and different ways to play. And with Mafia 3, that was a big problem that I had, but thankfully, I didn't actually pay a cent for that. Well, I paid my PlayStation Plus subscription, but you know what I mean. I got the free game on PlayStation Plus, so I didn't have to pay a full $60 price tag for that, thankfully, because if I did, I don't think I would have been a happy camper. So, yeah, I definitely agree that there are some games that are more worthy of that $60 price tag, and I think you're definitely right about platforming games being worth a lot less. I actually think I specifically mentioned Crash 4 not being worth $60 because it's so fucking short. Like, it should be cut in half at the very least. It should be $30 or maybe $40 if you want to push it. But that's the thing, man. Like, Crash Insane Trilogy was $40, and it was 3 games put together. And Crash 4 is $60 for one game. I just have a problem with that. And people out there, they're willing to pay that. I guess, you know, to each their own. But me, personally, I can't support that. And then Arscape says, I never pay $60 for a new game, even if people say it's worth it. I usually wait until the price goes down. And that's another fair thing. Even if the game is phenomenal, like Cyberpunk is supposed to be. I mean, we don't know exactly if it's going to be good or not, but people have a feeling that's going to be an amazing game. It's probably going to be the game of the year. But, like I said in the video, I don't care if I play the game in December. Now it's December, it was November. I don't care if the game comes out in December or whatever. I'm not in a rush to play it. I can play it a year from now, 2 years from now. I already have a huge backlog. Like, what is my rush on playing this game day one? Fear of missing out? I don't care about missing out. I don't care about following trends. And I kind of understand that the way I play video games and the way I consume is not a very sustainable model because it relies on other people paying $60 for the game brand new. So me trying to say, oh, you guys shouldn't pay $60 for a new game. But if nobody does that, then these games literally can't be successful, because if a game comes out and nobody buys it for like a year, 2 years, and waits for it to come down in price or whatever, then they're not going to make a lot of money making the game. So I understand, it's not all black and white, that, oh, you should never pay $60 for a game. You should never buy a game day one. But, like, I kind of have to have people to do that in order for me to do my thing, right? So I understand that point. But yeah, I make it a rule to just never pay $60 for any game whatsoever, because yeah, like a year from now it'll be half off on a Steam sale, a holiday sale, and I'll have the same exact experience that everyone else had a year ago. So I'm in no rush. I don't need to play a game when everyone else is playing it, especially a single player game. Like, who gives a fuck? You know, it's a single player game. I can enjoy it whenever the fuck I want. But yeah, I just don't. The last time I spent $60 on a brand new game was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, and I regretted that decision. But it was also kind of like a tradition that I always did. I buy the new COD every year. I'm kind of growing out of that phase at this point, but I also run a Call of Duty channel, so I might do the same thing for Cold War, but I really don't want to, because that game seems like a pile of shit, but whatever. And then before that, it was Red Dead Redemption 2. That was the last game that I bought for $60. So it's like usually once a year, or even less, that I buy a game brand new. It's just such a rare thing for me to do that I just don't see the point. I know a lot of people like to do that, but I'm in no rush, and I like saving money. Dr. Daniel 316. I typically don't buy games brand new anymore. I think the last game I bought new was Super Smash Bros. For 3DS back in 2014. But for me, a game should ideally have enough content that's fun to play, that'll keep me coming back for more. What matters is the amount of fun. Quality over quantity. Although I think by default, games should have single player and multiplayer, unless, of course, one of the two don't fit that exact game. Basically, as long as the game is entertaining for its run, and I come back for more, I think that'll make a game worth its asking price. Yeah, I could agree with you on that. Magnamaster earlier was talking about spending 30 hours on an hour-long game. I just can't do that. Like, once I experienced it once, even if there are different ways to play, I guess Telltale Games is a good example of a game that is, like, relatively short, but you can do multiple playthroughs, so it is worth the price, especially since they're not full-priced games. They're like $30 for the whole season, which I think is actually pretty reasonable, especially considering the replayability, even though your choices don't actually fucking matter, but that's another story. But touching on the single player and multiplayer, because that's another thing I mentioned in the video, that I think it is ideal for a video game to have both single player and multiplayer. Because, yeah, I do understand that there are certain times when it doesn't really fit. Fallout 4 being an example. Never mind Fallout 4 having a multiplayer mode, but Fallout 76, which is a standalone multiplayer game, just the whole creation engine in Fallout just does not work, fundamentally does not work for an online experience. So it was just a flawed concept. The game sucks ass. I'm talking about 76. Fallout 4, in my opinion, with mods, that's the asterisk, with mods, is one of my favorite games of all time. If I played the game vanilla, I would not be playing it for 1 year, never mind 5 years. But you definitely had a lot of games back in the day during the 7th gen that just had a tacked on multiplayer. Think of Spec Ops The Line, which was completely focused on single player, but had a multiplayer tacked on that nobody fucking remembers. Yeah, so there are certain times when multiplayer really doesn't work, but there are also other times where single player doesn't work either. Rainbow Six Siege, for example, works pretty well as an online-only game. You don't need a single-player campaign for that. And then, of course, there are games like The Last of Us 2, which is a sequel to the original Last of Us, which had a single-player and multiplayer, but they took the multiplayer out of the sequel. Yeah, games like that that take features away and they're supposed to be a sequel, I can never support that. If your sequel is less of a game than the original, then it's just completely pointless to me, and that's what The Last of Us 2 is. But then I made a video talking about the Xbox Series S's performance for the new Yakuza game, and this video, a lot of people did not like what I had to say in that video, but the thing is, like, I didn't say anything too controversial. All I was saying is that it's very interesting that this new game can't do 1080p 60 FPS on the Series S. We're not talking about 1440p 60, we're talking about 1080p 60. And I was trying, I'm like, okay, maybe it's just that the game is poorly optimized. I wasn't making a definitive statement one way or the other. But so many Xbox fanboys just were so upset about this video. They just saw the title and disliked. That's pretty much all they did. Because, they have a very short attention span. They're not very intelligent people, so don't expect anything more from them. This ended up being my most successful video in the month of October. I made a decent chunk of change on it. Like, a lot of the revenue that I made this month actually came from this video. So thank you guys for your support, even those of you who left dislikes and were hating on me. I really appreciate it. But let's check out your comments. I Am Hendo says, the Series S is targeted at an audience that won't care about the resolution all that much and just care playing games, and them seeing this console on the shelf at £250, that's a no-brainer. I would rather 900p 60 FPS over 1080p 30 FPS. Yakuza is a bad optimized game, so let's not underestimate the Series S. Well, the thing is, I don't disagree with your comment at all. I absolutely agree that 900p 60 is better than 1080p 30. And I even said in the video, I even gave evidence that the Yakuza engine is not a very well optimized engine, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the Series S is underpowered. So it's what I said in the video. So we don't disagree with each other at all. But a lot of the Xbox fanboys, they just looked at the title. I said the Xbox Series S can't do 1080p 60, but then in the fucking parentheses, I said, or can it? And in the video, I show how poorly optimized the engine is for the Yakuza games, but people still took it as me shitting on the Xbox Series S. But it's just, these fanboys are fucking retarded. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. And I'm going to talk about the person who commented specifically. The next comment kind of goes into that, but the person leaving this comment, I just think, thinks that for some reason I disagree with him, but I don't. Like, everything that he commented, I said, and somehow the comment got a lot of likes, and like I said, I have no problem with what he what he wrote, but a lot of the fanboys took it as me attacking the Series S console and saying, oh, look at this is confirmed, the console is underpowered. But if you actually watch the video, that's not what I said. But I do think you're definitely right on the point of the average consumer not really caring about, let's say the console is 900p 60 for every single game going forward, which is, probably not likely, which is what I said in the goddamn video. But let's say it was 900p 60 average performance for each and every game on the Series S. Yeah, I mean, it's an entry-level console, and your average mainstream consumer is not going to really focus on stuff like resolution and frame rate. I mean, I think at this point 60 FPS should be the standard for every game going forward. It just makes the games so much better. I mean, you can't name a single game that's better in 30 FPS than 60. It's just, such a thing does not exist. And you console players won't understand until you get the 60 FPS experience what a difference it makes, because there's still people out there that think there's no difference between 60 and 30. Just go on a YouTube video and watch a video in 60 FPS and you'll see exactly what I mean. It's a huge difference. But even resolution, I mean, the fact that we're still talking sub 1080p in 2020 is a little concerning, even if the engine may not be greatly optimized, and possibly the new Yakuza game might be an outlier and is not the average performance for games on the Series S. But the fact that we're already getting hiccups like this early on, what's going to happen in 2024, 2025? Games are going to have a really hard time keeping up, I think. Especially with the Series S. But we'll see. And then this next comment from Blood Red. Look, bruh, no reputable person stated the Xbox Series X runs similar to a 2080 Super, okay? Shaking my head. Furthermore, Assassin's Creed Valhalla will run at 4K 60 on Xbox Series X, and clearly that game is vastly superior to the Sega Yakuza game, LOL. So clearly Sega is not optimizing properly. That's on Sega, not the console. Use your brain. Yeah, use my brain. This is the same person that didn't bother watching a fucking 5-minute video that is telling me to use my brain. I find that very interesting, because I said in the fucking video, I actually gave evidence to indicate that, yeah, the Yakuza engine is not optimized very well. The game they came out with last year, in 2019, it ran on a 2080 Ti at 4K 50 FPS with everything maxed out. But as far as no reputable person saying that it runs like a 2080 Super, dude, you had fucking news articles that were trying to imply that the Series X was as powerful as a 2080 Super. So don't give me that bullshit that, oh, nobody was saying that it's as powerful as a 2080 Super. Anyone watching this right now knows that we've heard a lot of that talk about the Series X being on par with a 2080 Super, even going as far as to say that it's not just on par with a 2080 Super, but it's in between the power of a 2080 Super and a Ti based off of the 12 teraflops. So, there are a lot of people that were saying it. There are people saying it in the comments of that very video that I made about the Xbox Series S and the Yakuza game. A lot of comments. I'm not going to get into all of them because they're just fucking stupid. And I'm not going to spend a whole hour debunking mindless Xbox fanboys that don't understand technology. But I'll give a simple explanation to you right now. And this is about the Xbox Series X, because the Series X runs the new Yakuza game at 4K 30. If it was really in between the power, if it was really near the power of a 2080 Super or a 2080 Ti, it would not only be able to hit 4K 30. Because again, it runs 4K 50 FPS on a 2080 Ti, which was one of the most powerful GPUs on the market. So that does, support the idea that it's not a very well optimized engine, but at the same time, it runs 4K 50 with everything maxed out. Max ultra settings, anti-aliasing turned all the way up, all the textures, everything cranked all the way up. Do you honestly think that Assassin's Creed Valhalla, for example, which is a game that this person brought up in the comment, do you honestly think that Assassin's Creed Valhalla, running at 4K 60 on the Series X, is going to have everything maxed out? Of course not. It's going to look okay. It's not going to look bad. It's not going to be like running it on a potato. It'll probably be more like running on a gaming PC at 4K 60 with medium-ish settings. I mean, that's pretty much what you should expect with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's not all about resolution and frame rate. There's so much more to a game's performance and presentation than those two variables, and that's something you guys do not understand. Because most of the console games we got on the PS4 and Xbox One didn't really have any anti-aliasing. And even in 2013, the performance of the base model PS4 and Xbox One matched that of a low to mid-range PC. It was nothing very impressive. So I'm not going to try to say that the Xbox Series X and PS5 are going to be as crappy as the PS4 and Xbox One in terms of performance, but don't expect 2080 Super or 2080 Ti level performance and graphical quality. It's just not going to happen. I can promise you that. I can promise you the Series X is not as powerful as a 2080 Super, never mind a 2080 Ti. Because on a 2080 Super, it can run 4K 60 just fine with max settings. And I was just talking about the 2080 Ti can do 4K 50 with the latest Yakuza game, not Like a Dragon, the one that came out before. So, yeah, the engine is not optimized very great, but that's just all the proof you need that the console, if it's barely struggling, if the Xbox Series S can't do 1080p 60, and the Xbox Series X can't do 4K 60, then that pretty much confirms that not only is the Xbox Series X not on par with a 2080 Super, never mind a 2080 Ti, because the 2080 Super can easily outperform the Series X's pathetic 1440p 60. But when we're talking 900p 60 on the Xbox Series S, I mean, that thing is not even close to a 2070. Or even my GPU, the 2060 Super, I can guarantee you my 2060 Super can do a lot more than 900p 60 for the new Yakuza game. Give me a fucking break, guys. I mean, these Xbox fanboys, they're pathetic. They really are. And there's so many other comments I can read from that very video. Just the same shit. Xbox fanboys who clearly didn't watch the fucking video, first of all, because I wasn't trying to say that the Yakuza game is indicative of the entire performance of the console, that every single game is going to run 900p 60. If you actually watch the fucking video, you'll know that I actually said everything that these people have said, that, yeah, the engine is not very optimized, but that's one thing. The other thing is that they keep talking about how powerful it is. Oh my god, Gears of War, 4K 120 and everything. Like, okay, cool, but most games are not going to run 4K 120 on the Xbox Series X. I can promise you that. That isn't to say that the console is weak and it's completely underpowered and it's a useless piece of shit, but it ain't no high-end PC, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. So moving on to my next video, which was also kind of controversial because the Sony fanboys weren't happy. So it's funny, I'm accused of being a Sony fanboy when I say negative things about Microsoft, but when I say negative things about Sony, all of a sudden I'm an Xbox fanboy again. I just love that whole dynamic. But yeah, Sony spying on party chat conversations. Now, we have gotten more information. Well, it's pretty much just PR bullshit from Sony. They're like, oh no, we're not spying. We're not listening in on your PlayStation party chats. We're just going to monitor them for safety and to make sure you're not violating the terms of service. So, you know, the way that people are justifying that is that if you bully someone, if you harass them, if you tell them to kill themselves in a party, you can record that and report it to Sony. And that way it makes the PlayStation safer, and everything is just sunshine and rainbows. But it's just, no, there's just a lot of privacy concerns. The fact that Sony can record your conversations, and they can listen to pretty much everything you fucking say. And that's a clear violation of privacy. Now, some people don't mind having their privacy violated. The common thinking that people have is, well, I have nothing to hide, so I don't care if anyone listens in what I'm saying. But that's not what privacy is all about. Privacy is not just for guilty people or people who do something bad. I think everyone has the right to privacy. Like, for example, if you're doing naughty things or saying naughty things to your girlfriend, do you want that whole conversation to just get out there in front of everybody? Of course not. Do you want some Sony executives jacking off to your conversations with your girl, if you have a girl, on PlayStation? You know what I mean? That's just like an extreme example, but you guys get what I'm saying. Now let me respond to this point brought up by Summonon, because that's a common thing that people bring up, saying, well, Sony's doing it, but everyone does it, so it doesn't matter. So let me read this comment and respond. Summonon says, Sony spying on users. No surprise, I used to have such a huge reaction, but now I expect it of these large corporations. Spyware is the norm. Console gamers have no recourse as per usual. I want to have this huge and offended reaction, but I'm just not really surprised. Also, Discord isn't private by any means. This is in reference to me saying that Discord is a much better platform and you have more privacy. You could just switch to Discord if you were on PC, but on console, you have no alternative. You have to use PlayStation Party Chat or else. But he's saying Discord is not private, and my response was, Discord does not record private calls. And Summonon responded saying, nothing on Discord is encrypted as far as I know. It's the government and probably even hackers for the taking. Also, there was a lot of investment from Tencent in 2019, quite worrying to me. Not to say there are a lot of great voice chat options other than some Matrix clients and maybe Telegram. I can't think of much, and that's worrying because these trends are only getting worse. I mean, I get what you're saying, and that is an issue with Discord, that in theory the government can wiretap anything that they want to, but they could do that on the PlayStation before Sony had this new policy put in place. Okay, so PlayStation Party Chat may have never been one of the most private ways for you to have conversations with people, but the point I'm trying to make in this video is that it's gotten objectively worse. It's even worse than it was before, and it's worse than most other clients, including Discord. Because, okay, yeah, maybe Discord, someone could hack into it, and someone could potentially listen in on your conversations, but 2 points on that. One, Discord is more secure than using Facebook or all the other mainstream options, because Discord, as an entity, does not listen in on people's private calls. Facebook does with their calling service, and now Sony is doing that for theirs. So I don't believe that there's an equivalency that you can make between PlayStation and Discord. I think that Discord is a much better service if you're concerned about privacy. It's just a much better service overall, really. There's just so much more features, so much more things you can do on Discord than you can on the PlayStation service. And that's with Discord being completely free and you having to pay for PlayStation. But I just think it's crazy that there's so many people out there that are trying to rationalize this. And I'm not saying, Summonon, that you're one of those people. I understand your perspective that you're just kind of numb to it because our privacy rights have eroded so much over the years. I completely get that. But we shouldn't allow them to erode even further and give more leeway for these corporations to take our privacy rights away. And that's the point I was trying to make in that video. And then $5 Combo says, nice thing about PC is if Discord, for example, did this, everyone would go to a different platform. Anyways, I think the gaming community needs to come together and stop bending over to the companies that have made things worse and profited from it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. So I don't buy the whole idea that Discord is no better than PlayStation. No, because the actual company Discord is not listening in on your conversations. I mean, theoretically, anyone could listen in on any of your conversations, and, you know, the government, they have the NSA, and that's a whole, that's a serious issue that I, have a lot of passion for. But, again, just because our privacy rights are already kind of fucked doesn't mean we should just be like, meh, and allow them to be more fucked. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's the thing about the consoles, is that you have no choice, you have no options, you have no alternatives. Once you have that console, Sony has the final say in every experience you're able to have. You can't make any choices. Sony makes all the choices for you. And then Libra October. You may not believe me, but I wasn't going to buy the PlayStation 5 because of the censorship policy, but this is actually the last straw. Plus, the update bricked my console, and the online sucks. Cannot see my friends. Sony fanbase gotta speak up. I spoke up. Why can't others do so? Yeah, the PlayStation censorship policy is actually very interesting because, it's like pretty much a violation of free speech. I understand the corporations, they can allow what goes on their platform, what doesn't go on their platform, but I just don't understand what the whole rationale behind that is. I guess, the Sony platform wants to have the cleanest image they possibly can. That's why they don't let adult games on their platform, I suppose. And that's certainly, I guess you could say that's their right to do so. But I just don't think it really benefits anyone to say that these games cannot be allowed on our platform. I think people should just have the freedom to choose whatever they want to choose. And I've made a lot of controversial statements in the past defending free speech and being completely against censorship, especially when it comes to media and with video games. I don't care if it's a video game that simulates a school shooting. The only exception I could possibly think of a game actually being banned and that being justified if it's a CP simulator or something like that, because that's straight up exploitation of children and that's against the federal law, and I think everyone agrees that it should be against the law. And in that case, yeah, those kind of games should not be allowed. But other than that, I don't think there should be any censorship. But we're kind of going off track here. On the issue of privacy, it is very concerning that so many people are just complacent about it. They just don't care. And that's very concerning for the future of our civil liberties, not just within the realm of video games, but overall. Because it seems like they're just eroding further and further as time goes on. And to be honest, I'd be surprised if we had much freedom left 100 years from now, because we're heading in a bad direction, I could say that. And it's not the people in power, it's the people themselves that are just complacent and doing absolutely nothing to fight back. But you know how it goes, you reap what you sow, and you're gonna be sorry about it if you just let these corporations and these governments walk all over your rights. And then Avery is asking, what is up with the gamma on your video? Yeah, I'm not sure. The video looked just fine to me. I think I was playing Modern Warfare 2019, so maybe the recording software I use is a little off. I don't know. But if anyone else notices that there's something wrong with the quality of my videos, definitely let me know right now in the chat or in the comments when this video is put on demand. I personally don't notice any issues with my video quality, but if you think I could do better, definitely let me know. I'm always trying to improve my channel and the quality of my content. Moving on to my next video where I talk about me being wrong about VR. Remember years back I said, oh, VR is just another worthless gimmick, it's a shitty gimmick, it's never gonna take off. I mean, granted, back then I was kind of a troll, but I actually did have genuine feelings that VR was not gonna get very far. But I turned out to be wrong, and I do think that VR is going to be very successful in the future. It already is on the way to reaching that success, and it's definitely grown significantly over the past 5 years. Finn says, VR is so much fun. I believe it's the future of gaming and simulations. Well, I think you're half right. Well, actually, I think you're like 3/4 right. So I think you're definitely right when you say that VR is the future of simulations, because VR would be a more realistic way to have simulations than just whatever they have. Like, VR is definitely good with that. As far as the future of gaming, I think you're half right on that point, because it is going to grow and it is going to be very successful, and it is going to become more of a mainstay in the mainstream gaming culture within the next few years. But as far as it being the future of gaming, that kind of implies that VR is set to replace the traditional way of gaming. So whether it be a keyboard and mouse or a traditional controller experience, I think no matter how advanced VR gets, and I'm sure it will become better as technology gets better, so VR will be a better experience over time. Regardless, I don't think it's going to ever replace the way that we play games now. It's just going to be a different way to play, if that makes any sense. So think of mobile gaming, right? The idea of playing video games on a cell phone 20 years ago was a joke, but now it's the most successful market in the entire gaming industry. So I think VR, we're going to see a very similar thing play out, where it is going to grow, but it's not going to outright replace traditional methods of gaming. I think there is a future of VR, but I don't know if VR is the future. I think that might be a bit of a stretch. And Dr. Daniel 316, I personally haven't used VR, and it doesn't appeal to me, but that's mainly because VR is so expensive just for a headset, and then you need a PC that could run VR properly. For me, if I gotta spend a couple $100s on a device, I'd rather just use that money to upgrade my PC more, rather than on a device with a niche market appeal that I'm not guaranteed to like. I guess if I were able to try VR, then I might be convinced otherwise, but as of now, VR just feels like an expensive gimmick to me that I don't feel like spending money on, when that money could go to something more substantial and worthwhile. So I definitely agree with your sentiments about VR, that like, for me personally, I just don't see any reason to get into it. It's just such a huge setup. I got all this equipment I gotta hook up and hook it up to a PC, and I do have a good enough PC to run it, don't get me wrong. It's just a pain in the ass to hook up as of right now. And there is the Oculus Quest, which I think is the future of VR, which I said specifically in the video, that wireless VR is the only way VR can ever become truly successful, because with all the wires and sensors on the walls, if that's the main way people play VR, then VR doesn't have much of a future. But yeah, wireless VR is definitely where most of the VR success is going to be found. But above all else, the main thing holding me back from getting into VR is that I don't know for sure if I'm going to like it, because VR, whether you love it or hate it, everyone could admit that it's not for everybody. I heard it's really bad for people with bad motion sickness, and I have really bad motion sickness, so I'm going to spend, what, $300, $400 on a headset, and then end up puking my guts out, you know? I mean, maybe that's not going to happen, but still, like, it's something that you really need to try out before you know if it's good. It's kind of like playing any video game on a console for the first time. Like, you don't know if you're actually going to like it. Like, the only, like, I remember when I got my PS2 for Christmas, or for my birthday, my 6th birthday it was, that was my first console. I didn't know I wanted a PS2 until I played a PS2 at other people's houses, you know what I mean? Like, that's where I got that experience from. And right now, I don't have any vehicle or any avenue to try out VR for myself. I don't know anybody who has VR. I don't even know, like, one of those VR labs you can go to. There used to be one down in Coney Island, but it's gone, and I don't even live in the city anymore, so I have no way of trying out VR. So that's pretty much where I stand right now, but I recognize that VR does have a lot of potential. It is growing, and it definitely will become more of a mainstay in video game culture within the next 5 to 10 years, definitely. And then we have an interesting comment from ITR. I think your problem is that you are very vocal about the things you believe and go way too hard in on everyone who has a different point of view than you. Take, for instance, each time you flip-flop on console and PC gaming. Each time you seem to find the worst argument against your side and debunk them. I think your videos would be better if you just made more nuanced arguments and checked a lot of pros and cons. Kind of as if you made the points you made in this video against your previous VR video. One thing I think you should look more into when it comes to VR is which games are the most popular currently, and then compare them to what kind of games are currently popular outside VR. So in response to your comment, I appreciate your criticism. I think criticism is a great thing, especially when it's constructive. But I don't know if that characterization of me is very accurate, that I constantly flip-flopped on console and PC gaming. Yeah, I did flip-flop, of course. I was a console fanboy, the biggest console fanboy you have ever seen on the internet, the console king. And then I go to trashing consoles and saying that PC is the best platform in gaming right now. So I've definitely flip-flopped, but I think you're trying to say that because I then made a video, what was it, a little over a year ago, talking about why I switched from PC to console. And I made like a half-hour long video talking about how I got into PC in late 2018. I finally switched from console to PC, but then in late 2019, I switched back to console. But if you actually pay attention to that video, most of the points I make against PC had nothing to do with objective pros and cons. It was my personal experience at the time having to use a shitty-ass mobile hotspot for an internet connection, which meant I had to download every single game onto my PC, right? So it was definitely a worse experience for me than having the disc, which, yeah, I said that you still have to download it and you still have to install some shit off the internet, especially with the patches with online games, but it still took a lot less time because even with the disc, even with it installing content on the disc, it still ripped it from the disc and didn't use my internet connection. So for example, if I got a game brand new, had an offline connection, didn't even have any internet on at the moment, I can put the disc in and it would only install 10 gigabytes onto the disc itself, but then the rest of it would install from the disc to the console and it would be completely offline. I did that for Detroit Become Human, and I didn't need any internet to install that game, and it was like 40 gigabytes. And for me, back then, a 40 gigabyte download was a lot because I had less than 5 megabit per second speeds. So it would have taken me at least a day to download the game off the internet. But if I didn't have the hotspot on, if I didn't have my phone in the window, I didn't have any internet. So it was just a pain in the ass, and that's why I temporarily switched back from PC to console. But then when that whole thing got sorted out, when my internet was actually good, I went right back to PC. As far as me flip-flopping on VR, I think I'm a different person now. I think I'm a more open-minded person now than I was 5 years ago. And I always try to have a more nuanced approach with topics, especially these days. Maybe, look at me in 2016, 2017. I think I might have approached things a little bit differently, but I don't think I come into a video with a preconceived notion and just try to debunk the weakest argument to make mine look stronger. Do you guys think I argue like that? Like, I'm genuinely concerned. Like, if everyone's telling me I'm drunk, then I'm drunk. But I really don't think that that's how I do things. But if everyone in the chat right now says I do, then I really got to rethink things, because I do take criticism seriously. I do listen to it, and I thank you, ITR, for yours. I don't think that's the way I do things, but if everyone else can back you up here, then I definitely need to take another look at the way I do my channel. But moving on to a video I made talking, just pretty much ranting about these stupid people on the internet that like to say that every single game is dead because they don't play it anymore. like Fortnite is a good example. How is Fortnite a dead game when it generates billions of dollars each year? It's a dead game, apparently. And I had a screenshot to a tweet in that video of someone saying Fortnite is dead. And you just see it all the time. Dead game, dead game, dead game. That label is just thrown around freely, and it has absolutely no meaning at this point. So it's just me ranting about that, but let's see what you guys have to say about this subject. Magnamaster. People have been calling Team Fortress 2 dead for like half a decade now. Meanwhile, it has never left the top 10 most played Steam games that whole time. Yeah. Team Fortress 2 has been around for over 13 years, and you can still get into a match very quickly. How is TF2 dead? Because maybe it's not relevant anymore, but how does irrelevant mean dead? I think those two things are different, but as far as irrelevant, it's not even irrelevant if it's still one of the most played games on Steam. You know what I mean? It might not be as relevant as other games on PC, like CSGO, I guess you could say, but just because it doesn't get constant updates all the time, and it's not as active as the most played games right now, it's still, for a game that came out 13 years ago, has a very healthy player base. And the main grievance I had in my video that I was saying is that if a game still has a healthy player base and you can still find matches relatively easily, how is it dead? That's literally the opposite of being dead. And remember, I laid it out in the video specifically about two things that make a game dead. If it has such a low player base that you cannot find a match, or if the servers are shut down. Those are the only two instances where a game can genuinely be considered dead. Now, can a game be dying? I think Quake Champions might be in that conversation of a game that is dying in terms of losing players and, declining over time. But it's not dead. How about this comment from Superb? Rainbow Six has more players now than in the beginning. And when did RS Siege come out? 2015, I believe. Came out 5 years ago. It has more players now than it did at launch. And anyone who played Rainbow Six Siege at launch would remember the first year of its life cycle was very rocky, to say the least. It was not looking good for Rainbow Six Siege. But it turned around. And it became one of the most played FPS games in history. But I can guarantee you can find a lot of people out there that are trying to say that Rainbow Six Siege is dead, even though for a game that came out in 2015, I can guarantee you, compared to 99.9% of games that came out in 2015, Rainbow Six Siege has the most players of any 5-year-old game. So, Rainbow Six Siege is dead. I don't get that one, but I've definitely seen that. I've seen people say that game is dead, and it just makes no fucking sense. And $5 combo. It's sad when a game stops being supported as much, but at the same time, it's great to get a new, fresh game with new stuff to play around with. And that's something I touch upon in the video, that it's actually a good thing if a game is quote-unquote dead, because the definition of dead that people bring up is not necessarily that the game doesn't have players or it's unplayable. It's that the game doesn't get regular updates. But case in point, how about GTA 5? That game came out 7 years ago. I want that game to die at this point. It needs to die. We need a GTA 6 at this point. It's just so repetitive. I don't care how much shit they put on. I don't care how many updates you get. Never mind the microtransactions being terrible. But even if GTA 5 didn't have the bullshit microtransactions, it's still, you're playing on the same map for 7 goddamn years. It's time for a change. And I think with Rainbow Six Siege, we're getting to that point as well. There's only so much they can do with one game. They can keep updating it and doing whatever, but at the end of the day, you're still playing the same game over and over and over and over again, and at some point, it's going to become redundant, and you're going to want a fresh, new experience. And I actually missed the times when we had a new game every 2 or 3 years. Now it's a live service with a lot of these multiplayer games, where you could wait like 5-10 years for a sequel, because with the microtransactions and everything, the game is just doing too well to work on a sequel. Another comment from Dr. Daniel. Glad someone has finally made a video on this. To me, I don't care if a game is considered dead or not. As long as there are players or I have fun playing it, then I will continue to play it. Very simple. I also hate how people think you are less of a gamer for playing old games, and they can't grasp why you don't play the new ones, when, to be honest, the reason why I don't is because I don't care to play the newer ones, because they don't interest me, period. If more games these days were to actually interest me, then maybe I'd put down old games like the older COD games, Team Fortress 2, Left 4 Dead, etc. Fun is the most key elements in games, no matter how old a game is. I don't get why people think old games that are no longer supported are dead and shouldn't be played or enjoyed. And that's just something I don't understand. It's just these little Fortnite kids, these 12-year-old, 13-year-olds, that they follow every trend. Whether it's Fortnite, fidget spinners, TikTok, whatever is the hottest thing right now, they're on that shit. And I remember saying at the end of the video to fucking ignore these people. They're irrelevant. And I guess me making a video talking about these people makes them more relevant in some way. So I guess I'm kind of a hypocrite. But you guys get what I'm saying. Like, just enjoy whatever fucking games you want to play and just ignore what everybody else does. And that kind of builds on one of the previous videos I made, what we talked about earlier about how much content should a game have. It's just me talking about how it doesn't matter if you buy a game 1 year after, 2 years later, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And remember we were talking about that earlier? Well, this kind of goes on to that, except we're specifically talking about online games. But it still builds onto the same conversation. If you enjoy playing the game, that's all that matters. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. If you enjoy the game and you have a lot of fun playing it, that's all that fucking matters. And I also talked about the Cyberpunk 2077 delay, which got a lot of people in the community all riled up, because how many times this game got delayed at this point? They kept moving the goalposts. It was supposed to be released originally in April of this year, then it got pushed back to September, then it got pushed back to November, and now it got delayed until December. December 10th is now the new release date for the game. And the big reason why people are really upset is because they said just a month ago that the game has gone gold. and a few weeks after saying the game has gone gold, the game got fucking delayed. I don't think that's ever happened before in video game history where a game goes gold and still gets a delay. But at the same time, it's a fucking game. I think you'll live waiting another 3 weeks. It's not the end of the world. You'll be fine. I know a lot of you have waited 8 years to get your hands on this game, so I understand why you're very agitated about it, but if the 3-week delay makes the game better across all platforms, then there's really not much to be upset about, because you are going to be upset if the game did launch on November 18th and didn't have that extra care and attention that it could have, that extra polish, you know, because there are bugs that they have to fix or whatever they said. So you guys don't want the game to launch in that state, because they're going to have to update it and fix it later anyway. You know what I mean? It's just, you might as well just wait the extra 3 weeks. It's not going to kill you, but I can totally get the frustration. Definitely. My friend Ethan says he's happy they delayed it. Too much going on in November either way. Yeah, I mean, we have next-gen consoles, the Series X and the PlayStation 5 coming out. What games are coming out in November? I think Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. I might be missing something else. Honestly, I don't follow the new shit. I don't buy new games anymore, like I said earlier, so I really don't care what's going on in November. I'm certainly not going to buy these next-gen consoles. Even if I wanted to, if you didn't pre-order it, you ain't going to get it for another 2 or 3 months at least, so that's a thing. I don't care if the game comes out in December of 2025 at this point. I just don't care. It doesn't really have any effect on my life. Playing games day one when they come out, I already said that's not my thing, but yeah, people are upset about it, but other people are just like, meh, just like me. So it's something that you really shouldn't get all worked up about, really. And then Weststyle says, adding more dev time does not equate to a better game. Diminishing returns. Reminder that Melee was made in less than 2 years, and Brawl was made in like 4 or 5. So you're definitely right that just because a game takes longer to develop doesn't inherently make it a better game than games that have a shorter development cycle. One game I can think of from the top of my head is Fallout New Vegas. Obsidian put that game together in a year and a half, not even 2 full years. A year and a half, they got that game ready. And yeah, when it launched, it was a buggy mess, but that's literally every Bethesda game. Fallout 3 was a buggy mess. Fallout 4 was a buggy mess. They had 7 years to work on that, and it was still filled with bugs. So, yeah, it's not all about how much time it takes to develop the game. I think you're definitely right about that. But if there are bugs that they can fix, give it another few weeks, and they can fix the bugs. I think CD Projekt Red is definitely better at that than Bethesda is. But I still believe genuinely that the more time you give a game, the more polished it can be, and ultimately, the better the game will be. Now, in the case of Super Smash Bros. Melee and Brawl, the developers just having a bad vision for what they wanted the game to be, and they could have had 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, that wasn't gonna make the game better, of course. Like, there's just sometimes when the design philosophy they have around the game, the way they decide to go about making the game, you can have all the time in the world. If the entire concept is flawed, then the game is gonna suck ass, or not be as good as you want it to be. I totally agree with you, and I think that's actually a really good point that you made. That more time doesn't inherently mean better game. And we got a comment from Arioka. I don't think Cyberpunk 2077 is in development hell. They're probably maximizing it to run better on next-gen consoles. And then Finn responds, or last-gen consoles. It is what it is. And Arioka replies, exactly. Also, last and new generation PC graphics cards, that's also a big leap in tech. So yeah, I mean, you gotta cut some slack, I guess, to CD Projekt Red. They are releasing multiple versions of this game. I don't think they've ever released so many ports for a single game in their entire development career. I mean, so what do they have? They have the PS4, the PS4 Pro, the Xbox Series X, the fucking Series S, the Xbox One X, gaming PCs. You gotta optimize it for PC with all those different GPUs and everything. And you got the next-gen GPUs that they have to optimize for as well. And I'm probably forgetting another platform, but that's like 7 platforms at least. Now, if you guys remember, I made a video a few months ago arguing that Cyberpunk 2077 should be canceled on the PS4 and Xbox One because the game would be better if they just abandoned the old technology. And I do think that the development of this game would be a lot more smooth if they decided to do that. But of course, they would also be making a lot less money. So, like anything, it's a business, right? CD Projekt Red, they're running a business, and they made a business decision to put Cyberpunk on old-gen hardware, which might as well be ancient technology at this point because it's just so underpowered, and it's definitely holding back the potential that the game has. And it's kind of like Halo Infinite. I think that they would have a much easier development, Microsoft, or 343, they would have a much easier development if they just abandoned the Xbox One and focused entirely on the Series X and Series S. But at the same time, the bulk of the install base is on the old hardware, and it is what it is. I'm sure Cyberpunk will still be a great game regardless. It's just harder for them to develop having those old consoles holding the game back. Oh no, Victor Murphy. I read that tweet and decided to take 3 days off of work. Oh my god, I feel so bad for you, Victor. I don't know if you're lying or if you're telling the truth, but if that's true, if that comment is real, if you actually took 3 days off of work because of this tweet, oh my god. That's rough, man. That's really rough. Can you somehow change it and say, no, I don't want those 3 days off and just take off December 10th, 11th, and 12th instead? I know, like, once you set a day off, it's hard to take it back, but I would try to talk with my boss, but then he's gonna realize that it's because of a fucking video game that you took off work, and he's not gonna wanna work with you, you know? But still, I try to get that fixed and changed, because that sucks, because what are you gonna do for those 3 days? There's no vacation you can take, because the world sucks ass right now with the COVID, so you're just gonna sit there and jerk off for 3 days. I'm sure you don't want that. Definitely try to get that fixed, Victor. And in my final video for the month of October, we're talking about politics in gaming. And what a very fitting way to end this recap. The election is literally right around the corner. And you guys know me, I always try to keep politics as far away from my gaming content as possible. But I wanted to make a video about this because it's ridiculous how much people are trying to integrate politics with not just gaming, but fucking everything in pop culture. Politics is just everywhere where it doesn't fucking belong. And all it does is divide people. And video games, like other forms of entertainment, is supposed to be a form of escapism. But people are trying to bring politics into something that's supposed to be fun. Ugh, it's just so awful. Let's see what you guys have to say. Sailor Mercury. God, I can't wait for the election to finally be over so these entertainment companies can finally stop pushing their agenda to get gamers out to vote. For one specific candidate, let's be real. And get back to just making games. I won't lie, I'm rooting for a certain candidate to win just to show how worthless all these lefty companies being overtly political are in influencing elections. Also to see the salt mine from YouTubers who decided to alienate half their audience to back some corrupt creep who sniffs children. I'm not gonna say anything about that. All I'm gonna say is that I agree that I just can't wait for this stupid fucking election to just be over with. And it's also irritating that all these companies and all these different people are trying to convince you to vote for someone. Like, fuck you, I'm more than capable of making up my own mind. But the point of the video is that the video game community and the video game industry is not an appropriate platform to discuss politics. Unless, of course, the issue is directly relatable to video games. For example, the regulation of video games by politicians. Of course, that's where politics and video games do mix very well, because it's actually relevant to the video game industry. But as far as who you're fucking voting for, nobody fucking cares. And this isn't directed at you, Sailor Mercury, just the average person that likes to bring politics into video games. Nobody cares. And this comment from Shinkansen really emphasizes my point here. Gaming is an escape from the real world. Please don't put politics into my favorite hobby. Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. There's plenty of opportunity to discuss politics, but in the video game community, it just doesn't belong there. And I get really irritated when people try to bring up politics where it has absolutely no relevance. And Dr. Daniel 316, like the saying goes, keep politics away from the dinner table, or in this case, the video games, because I use video games to escape reality and have a good time, not to be sucked into the current political scene. So we got a few comments that kind of share the same sentiment as I do. You can discuss politics whenever you want, but when you try to integrate it into a fun hobby like video games, it ruins the hobby quite a bit. Because when you play video games, you're trying to escape from reality, like Dr. Dan and other people put it. And James Joden says, politics, unfortunately, isn't everything these days, but it really doesn't have to. I really don't understand why people have to bring it into everything, even if you support, even if you agree with what these people are saying. Like, if you agree with these corporations saying vote for Joe Biden, or all these gaming channels saying vote for Joe Biden, even if you yourself are voting for Joe Biden, don't you just, like, want to escape from all the political shit just for just one place where you can escape from all that? You know what I mean? Is that too much to ask? And speaking of Biden, I got a Joe Biden YouTube account saying, remember everyone, this is the guy who said VR wouldn't take off in 2016. In other words, he's wrong. LMAO. Okay, so what am I wrong about exactly? That politics should be kept out of gaming. What is so wrong about that? Why do you want politics to be integrated into every fucking aspect of life? It just makes everything so fucking dreadful and depressing and just awful. Why do you want that? Shut up, man. And for the final comment of October, this is something I want to say for last because it's a really important point that I kind of talked about in the video, but it's so true. Shy Bandit. The only politics that belong in gaming are more philosophical and broad things like Metal Gear Solid's political messages. And that's something I touched upon in my video where I said that politics and video games don't always have to be separate. When I mean keep the politics out of gaming, I mean the real world politics, like Democratic Party, Republican Party, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, gun control, issues like that. Like, okay, we don't need to have a political debate in video games, but when it's fictional politics, like if it's something that can somewhat be connected to reality, but is also kind of its own thing, but it's still within the realm of a fictional world and a fictional conflict. For example, in the Deus Ex games, you got the All Lives Matter movement, where it's about people who are androids and have, like, machines in them. I don't know, I haven't played the game before, but that's a whole political issue in the world of Deus Ex. And I also mentioned the Brotherhood of Steel versus the Institute versus the Minutemen and the Railroad in Fallout 4. And the Stormcloaks versus Imperials in the Elder Scrolls. That's all politics, but it's fictional politics. And I don't think anyone's saying that we should take that stuff out of video games, but it's just when we're talking about real shit, real politics in video games, it's just not a good mixture. It's like oil and water. But I'm gonna leave it at that because I have plenty of time to think about politics this Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, however long it takes to get the results of the election. And yeah, either way, it's gonna be a shit show. So I'm not looking forward to that, but I guess we'll see what happens. Thank you guys again for your support in the month of October, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.